experimentation like we see in some offenders like Ed Kemper and some of these people that are really so isolated that they have a curiosity about bodies and people that sort of borders on the peculiar, like that becomes weird in a what we might call a schizoid autistic detachment. Not suggesting, of course, that people on the spectrum have a proclivity to violence, but that's a term that's used for that kind of intellectualized detachment. So that, it's an interesting question about the intellect here, but I don't think there's evidence of torture or anything like that. This looks more like a Blitz style, over the top expression of, rage or hatred or something towards these people, and so that statistically that wouldn't suggest a brilliant, over the top. But this is certainly an intelligent person who I would suspect knows a thing or two about true crime and how people, what other offenders have done to get away with things. To Greg's point about that this is somebody who I think thought about this a long time, fantasized a long time, and then picked a target. I think this guy knows a lot about other offenders and some of the techniques they've used, and I wouldn't be surprised if this person turned out to be quite a true crime fan. Greg, would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there has been an extensive period of time that he's developed. And he developed to the point where now he's confident, and he's very confident. He goes into that house at that particular time. He's planned it out sufficiently where it has reduced his risk level. And he's very competent and confident, both. He's prepared for this. And there may be discussions that he's had with people, not just about this. We've talked about post-offense behavior, pre-offense behavior. We're looking for why did he act out that particular night or that particular early morning hours. Typically, there's this precipitating stressors and triggering events that occur in their lives that build over a period of time, these stressors. And the stressors are similar to what all of us go through. The way in which they deal with those stressors is what's significantly different here. They'll go out and commit a crime. It de-stresses. It builds their self-esteem, because when they're successful at committing the crime, depending on the types of crime, and certainly this falls in that category. And so something happened to trigger the event to do it that early morning hours, to make that decision. He was prepared, has been prepared for a while, most likely, and for whatever reason, something triggered it to say, this is my time. This is the opportunity, and I'm going to strike.
Interesting. Dr. Burgess, and just if you're just joining us this evening, just let everybody know we have an auditorium of about 5,200 people in here tonight listening to you. So if you think about that as an auditorium, you have packed 3 auditoriums this evening, and they're listening intently. And one of the questions that comes up is, have you had a chance to communicate with other, colleagues within inside of your circles that have weighed in behind the scenes?
Yeah. I'll take that one. Yes, I have. It's a great topic being talked about a lot on our campus because of it being a university case and our being a campus. So people are weighing in. I had in fact, one of the deans from the School of Management weighed in. He said he was thinking about it. He thinks it's a man and that he's in his mid-20s. So he was weighing in on the age factor, and he went into that. It was kind of interesting. But I have a contact, a journalist, Greg Haropian, who is out on the West Coast. And he is in good contact, frequent contact with Ed Kemper. And we wanted to know if Ed, when he went to see him, whether Ed Kemper would be able to weigh in on it, not knowing whether he, watches any of this or whatever. And so Greg did talk with him, spent some time, took some scenes out. The only things I could take him, because you could take it into the prison, were outside pictures, of course, pictures of the house, and anything that was on the website. So Greg had a series to take in. And so one of the comments that Ed Kemper said is, he said, and I'll just read from the notes. Greg said, I showed him photos of the victims. We sent pictures of the victims and the house. And he said his first comment was the house was really weird looking. And in a way it is. It's a very unusual looking house. And so that's what caught his attention initially. And then he wanted to know whose cars were parked out there, which of course were the victims' cars, as I understand it. And then he said the skinned dog corpse found nearby might not have been because of the murder. It could have been done by a wannabe.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I know what that was. And then he said, if law enforcement had tried to speak to Ed through the media, we wanted to know that question, he wouldn't have responded. He said, any evidence is evidence. And if you have no choice but to leave evidence during a crime and you don't want to add to it. And then Greg talked to Ed about a time when he had left himself in one of his crimes, a footprint that had been left in the mud with his size 15 boot, and how he decided not to create more footprints by climbing back down the embankment to try to erase it. So he was very aware, Ed Kemper was very aware of evidence and leaving evidence and what he would or would not do. Now, Ed, of course, for those of you who maybe don't know, he would always kill in pairs. Not always, but usually killed in pairs. Killed his grandparents, killed co-eds in pairs, and killed his mother and her friend. So that there was this kind of thought of multiple victims. And he... I think the other interesting thing about Ed is there was a printout that he had decided that he would move from just what he said, just killing co-eds, and then start mass killing. He had already thought of killing mass, and that's when he turned himself in. So the other thing that Ed Kemper did, of course, was to decapitate the victims and cut their hands off. And that was because in those days, don't forget, it was just DNA or fingerprints that they would go after. And he thought he could, he was doing some way of avoiding.
So he was thinking ahead of the investigators.
Yeah.
During
yes.
Post-crime, post-incident behavior.
Right. And he would try to insert himself into the investigations, don't forget. He would sit with the police, and ask how things were going. He said he was a friendly nuisance, the police. So to answer your question, yes, people are talking about it.